So we are live. We are live. Welcome, everybody. If you are preparing yourself for a job interview, there is a probability of 95% that you will be asked the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm sure that you've already prepared your answer. If you're not preparing right now for a job interview, could you still answer this question? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Maybe yes, maybe you already have a plan, or maybe no, because you just started at a new job, or you're happy and satisfied where you are right now. So you're thinking, everything goes with the flow. Or maybe no, because you are too busy. You don't have the time to think about your future. Or maybe no, because you are stuck and you don't see a way out of that situation. So the good news is that there is a way to design your future. So welcome to this live. We are live on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And just in case you don't know me, my name is Caroline Grégoire, and I love helping impact driven leaders find clarity, meaning, and joy at work so that they have the time and the energy to live their life to the fullest. I do so in English, French, German, and Swedish. I have 20 years of experience in the actuarial, risk, and reinsurance fields, having worked in different countries and in various leadership positions. Most of the time, I worked in international environments. And for the last 8 years, I've been working as a mentor, coach, trainer, and keynote speaker. And I work with my clients on topics like leadership, communication, resilience, strategy, and culture. And I have two guests today. And my guests, they wrote the book, Design Your Future with the Competency Framework. There is also a subtitle that is called The Complete Actuary, a guide for actuaries by actuaries. And this is how the cover of the book looks like. So I will introduce my guest, and my first guest has extensive experience in the actuarial field, having conducted workshops and served on the SOA's examination committee. He has taught life insurance mathematics and was president of the Actuarial Club of Indianapolis. He also co edited the SOA Technology section newsletter. And 4 years ago, he relocated to Germany to be near his son. But today he's joining us from Florida. So welcome, Richard Junker.
Thank you, Carolyn. So glad to be with all of you.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
also
I
glad that
moved to
you're here.
Germany 4 years ago after my career in the USA, and I've been enjoying it immensely, exploring all of Europe, and of course, learning languages. I'm not nearly caught up with Carolyn yet, but there's always a future. That's the hope for all of us. I'd
Yes.
like to take up a first question from the very
I
thoughtful.
would like to invite our second guest,
Oh, yes,
if
of
that's
course.
okay
Let's
for
not
you.
go in yet. Pardon me.
Yeah, my second guest has a strong passion in support of professional and personal development for actuaries. During his career of 30 years, he developed his competencies through work in management and government personnel, as well as company associates. And he told me that 5 years ago, he walked the Camino de Santiago, which is a reason why his look transformed. If you compare how he looks like now to his picture on his LinkedIn profile. And together with Rich, he has continuously been a volunteer champion for the SOA Competency Framework. Please welcome Curtis Lee Robbins.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Richard, for being part of this team. And looking forward to addressing your expertise questionnaires today. Thank you, Carolyn.
Mm. Thank you for being here and happy Labor Day. I know it's Labor Day in North America. And also, I want to say happy International Actuaries Day. Let's celebrate at the same time the excellent work that actuaries do in every part of the work. And also, let's celebrate the personalities behind this work. So we have many things to celebrate today. It's the start of the last third of 2024.
Mm.
Um, I just want to tell everybody listening right now that if you have any question while we are talking, feel free to write them in the chat. Hopefully, we will see them. If we see them after the call, we'll make sure that we will answer them in a written form. And I have a question for the audience just before we start. And I I spoke about where do you see yourself in 5 years? Is it something that you've been thinking of? You have an idea already. So feel free to write in the chat a Y if yes, a N if it's no, and a M if it's maybe. Just that we check. So I'm checking the chat. Hmm. I don't see any answers now, but if you're watching the replay, make sure that you write this in the comment. So this book is a big book. It has 150 pages. I'm very interested to know, how did you come up with the idea of writing this book? You could have written maybe a technical book about life insurance mathematics or something else, but you chose to write about design your future. How did you come up with the idea?
Well, the very beginning of it was in fully 10 years ago. Curtis and I were new members of the Southeastern Actuaries Conference in Florida-based Southeastern USA. And we wanted to let our names be known somewhat. So I thought we should do a program together. And it came about, we were at a mixer in the evening, and just getting acquainted. And we hadn't known each other very long at all. But I proposed the idea, and Curtis readily assented. He wanted to do it too. So we hosted a workshop the next meeting that we went to. And it was just a little breakout group of each person talking about how they developed their particular individual competencies among the 8. And then they reported out. So that was the humble beginning of it. And the premise of it was that the competency framework of the Society of Actuaries is the tool that we felt was important for professional development. The Society of Actuaries invested a great amount of effort in devising it, consulting with over 3,000 people about the communication and other non-technical skills of actuaries. It was announced to great fanfare in the early going, and they had their internal champions. But then branding and professional development, so many other issues of the Society of Actuaries commanded their attention. And it didn't get the attention it deserved, and we knew it was an outstanding product. So we started promoting it. And then the next meeting after we did our workshop, we came back, did a presentation to the general meeting people, 125 people there. And fortunately, the very next day on a Saturday, Wolford London, who works with Moody's, said, "That was outstanding. Could you write an article for our newsletter?" They're always looking for articles. So I sat down to put it together, and from the slides and enhancements, soon enough, I had material for 4 presentations. And that came out over a 2-year period, and we extended that and reprinted it with the international section. So it was getting some promotion, but these sections are only about 800, 1,000 people, not a huge membership. So there was a good, strong uptick in the number of people who executed the competency framework, but still it didn't get its proper due. And we then did a panel discussion with our now editor, Margaret Milkind, a recruiter in the United States, distinguished recruiter, no less. And that just expanded our vision. We had a bigger audience. And it just kept continuing. And we always got to think, especially with Margaret, she says there are a lot of other actuaries that would be really enthusiastic to contribute to this book and give their best ideas. So it's not just we have our own great ideas, of course. We're very proud of them. It's not just Curtis and myself. We really collaborated with a lot of people. And that was the great satisfaction of it. We found so many people immediately responsive. Yes, I want to contribute. Yes, I'll do a testimonial. And I'll tell you my story about this competency and how it helped my career. So we're off and running. And then the question is, where do we get a publisher? Well, I thought Society of Actuaries, of course. No, they don't do publishing. Go to Actex. So we called up the president of Actex, and he said, wow, that's great. That is an outstanding book. There's a need for it. We want to work with you. You've got a great product. How many people look for a publisher for how long? Forlornly waiting for the next rejection letter. And Curtis and I never had to suffer like that. We always had people eager to work with us, and every call we had was very successful and happy, with minor exception, which I'll get to later. That, in the short description, is how the book came to be.
This is what also I was a little bit wondering, because it sounds as if, oh, everything was there was a flow of things, it just happened and then it continued and it worked out fine. But I was interested to know what was the most important challenge in that process.
Well, I wanted to add
let
to
Curtis append his
I want to add to Rich's thoughts as far as the idea for coming up with a book. The idea itself, what our motivation was. So, as Rich and I, as Rich mentioned, we met each other at the Southeastern Actuaries Conference. That was our first introduction. And little did he know, as he was inviting me to help him with this workshop, that I had worked at Humana, helping to pull together a professional development program for Humana, which covered a wide range of topics. And I often looked at the Society of Actuaries as a great professional organization, amazingly good at credentialing and keeping people credentialed through continuing education. And now they had this, as Rich introduced me, had this great competency framework, which helped people widen their scope to be able to help bring in a broader range of competencies to help them be more successful in their careers. That was amazingly connected to what you find in the corporate workplace, or in as a consultant, or even working with government. You need a way to engage your technical skills into the community. So I saw the value of the principles as a guide for professional development, the principles of competency. So that was my motivation as I gained more time with Rich and working. And the idea, it really kind of helped motivate us. Let's make a book out of this to reach a wider audience. To address your why not a more technical book? Well, there are enough technical books, for one thing. What we needed was a guide to references that are not typically referenced by the actuarial profession, to help people recognize how they can grow their competency, not just from within resources within this actuarial profession, but even outside the profession itself. So our book introduces people to resources outside of the actual profession to help grow their competency. So that's my thoughts to complement what Rich has introduced on response to your first question. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the biggest challenge? I don't know who wants to answer here. Because there must have been, you're talking as if everything.
We both have perspectives, so Rich, take it away.
Okay. Well, of course, a lot of things happened over 10 years. Curtis was working when we began. He retired. He made a move to the other side of Florida. Then he made a move to Indianapolis, and then he had to deal with his parents. They were in their 90s by then. So he had a lot of personal challenges going on. And for my part, of course, we all endured COVID in the middle of it all. And I was struggling to figure out a way to get to Germany and be with my son. He's been living there since he was 19, and now he's 36. So that was getting settled in, learning the language, everything else. So I made it for an exciting life, and I fitted the book into the interstices, if you will, into the open gaps. And fortunately, with being a retiree, I can choose to do a lot of things that I think are fascinating and still advance something of consequence to somebody besides myself.
Mhm. Mhm. And
And
for you, Curtis, was
I had
what
to
was
keep,
the
well,
challenge?
to compliment that,
Oh,
Rich.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
left the main, that was preface actually.
yes, yes, yes.
The real challenge was we were cooking along beautifully about 15 months ago. And then we got some kind of a communication from the Society of Actuaries that this tool, the Competency Framework self assessment, and the link to the spreadsheet, the goals worksheet, personal development plan, that identified your gaps among
Mhm.
those 8 out of a survey of 100 questions related to leadership, related to strategic thinking, and so forth, that says here are the ones you should focus your efforts on. They hamstrung it. They pulled it out. We could not imagine why, because we've been doing licensing agreements with them for several years. Surely they knew how essential this was. If you don't have that, you don't have a product. So
Mhm.
I wrote to the president of the Society of Actuaries at the time and laid out all our concerns. And of course, another one is that we were rather disappointed they didn't eagerly invite us to the annual meeting. But we
Mhm.
managed to influence our way into the meeting, and we also got the technology replaced, reestablished, and they did some real nice improvements to the spreadsheet as well. So we're
Mhm.
very pleased. So from then on, we were in high gear, and with Margaret Milkent, our editor, and with Kim Neufer of Actex helping us along, we cruised into the final lane. It was slow, but we got there.
See?
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was a deliberate process. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to add to that is, the restoration of the competency framework link basically was our opportunity to help communicate to the Society of Actuaries how important it was. In fact, we felt it was important enough to write a book. So they saw the value in that. So it was a really good opportunity to help us communicate and reinforce with the Society of Actuaries what value that this was becoming, and also our progress on the book. And they didn't realize, I guess they didn't realize how far along we were, and that helped them to restore that for us. As far as the biggest challenge for me, I think for writing a book, this was our first book, so aligning ideas, that was the main thing. We had these different chapters that we had presented, and polishing them in as from articles to chapters and aligning the ideas between the chapters and creating a flow between chapters was very important, especially bringing in our career breakthrough stories, which come through in chapters 5 and 6, and then also through the stories in chapters 7, and also the competencies that are in the very end. Rich, we haven't even mentioned. Rich's theme of noble purpose was one of the things that helped influence what I had to contribute. Primarily, me, he was a contributor to a chapter called "Heroes of Noble Purpose," which is amazing. And I also had the opportunity to use that idea to introduce chapter 4, which is from the experiences I had in professional development for actuaries at Humana, working with human resources, working with a learning organization, the chief learning officer of Humana. I was able to recognize the things that were important for professional development. So it starts with what your purpose is. So that's kind of leads into chapter 4. We'll get into that later, but mainly, that flow is what was a big challenge in writing the book. And the contributor success stories, each contribute an amazing success story, how to organize those and to understand some of the common elements and identify some of the success stories that didn't really identify which competency they that featured in their careers. We were able to look at their story and say, oh, this is the competency that goes with this particular career story. So we were able to pull all that together, and that was a kind of a challenge, but it was also an exciting challenge. We learned so much from everyone's contributions.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that was our challenge: integrating the contributors, recognition among the Society of Actuaries of the Competency Framework, and also just the flow in the book itself.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Thank you, thank you. And you've been talking, and it's part of the title, the SOA Competency Framework. And we probably have people who are watching right now or who will listen to this conversation in the future, and they may not know what the SOA Competency Framework is. I know there are 8 competencies. So, could you give us a short introduction on these 8 competencies?
I'll be glad to. For some reason, we have not figured out how to share screen with this app. I'm used to using some other ones, Zoom, so I'll do my very best to explain how it works. This originated back in about 2008 or 9. The need was seen for the publics of actuaries to be they wanted their actuaries to be able to explain to non-tech actuaries the technical impact of what their analysis showed. And they were often judged by many to be somewhat short on that front, partly because of their discipline of studying for the exams to a great extent solitarily. Sometimes it's just the temperament that attracts people to the profession. So they did a survey of about 3,000 people who are users of the actuarial product, fellow actuaries, CFOs, presidents, CEOs, all those people. And they filtered on all these to develop a question survey of 100 related to maybe 20 questions for leadership, a different number for strategic thinking and integration of ideas, and external knowledge of external practice, practical business sense, and of course, communication and leadership. So with that, they were very confident they had a well-validated survey. And the point was to say, on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you see yourself today on this dimension of communication, for example? And where do you see yourself needing to be given where your career direction is pointing to in 5 years, as Carolyn introduced? That's the premise of this. A 5-year time frame is a reasonable time to make some concrete action. With that, that identifies gaps, the ones that are the most serious. We assume that all actuaries are technically competent. We assume that they're very professional. And then it's more on the other ones that you really most often need to focus. So with that, you take these gaps, which is an integration of all of the questions on that particular competency, and where it's the biggest, you carry it over to a worksheet, an Excel spreadsheet, which is the classic SMART, specific, measurable, I forget what A is, time, realistic, all of those dimensions. And you say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it over this time frame. And then you check back in at the 6 months mark and say, have I made any real progress on this? And you iterate, of course, as your career develops, or if you have a new position that entails a different set of skills to be focused on. That's roughly how it works. And then the key of our book, I think, is the original approach the Society of Actuaries took was that they had the last 3 years of meetings, the spring meeting, life meeting, health meeting, the valuation actuary, which is now back, and the annual meeting. So they had over 300 sessions to choose from. And of course, most of them were technical. And so that leaves the other ones for communication. And you do not learn how to be a good communicator, for example, in a 60-minute session. You got to do something more concentrated. And it was kind of tedious to pull all of those sessions in. You say, is it a good one? Was it well rated? Did it have slides? How much does it cost? All these factors. And so that's why we felt the need for a book. There are a lot of other people and a lot of other professions that require so many of these same skills. So if it's emotional intelligence, there is a lot of material on that subject. Is it on personal styles? Is it related to the skills of the 7 Habits of Successful People, a classic? And Curtis's chapter 4 in particular brings all of that in. So you've got Rich's perspective, you've got Curtis's perspective, and we have a number of actuaries who are even a great deal more accomplished than even we are. So you have a great panel of experts, and that's what you need to have a village of supporters around you, people that you can turn to, and they contributed to this book, and you can say, well, this person is a former president of the Society of Actuaries. I'm sure he's very busy. No. Feel free to give a call. If you are in a meeting, speak up to them. They will be delighted to hear that you actually read their contribution to the book. So it'll be very easy to introduce a handshake to somebody you don't know and make them one of your champions of support in your career.
Hmm. I love the book. I think it's very important because I also observe the same thing that you do. Anytime there is an actuarial conference, whether it's the International Congress of Actuaries or the European Congress of Actuaries and so on, there is rarely a non-technical presentation. There may be one, there may be two, and sometimes, they are in the last room on the last day in the last session kind of
Exactly.
thing. And I think it's rather sad because I think when we're talking about non-technical competencies, they also need to be practiced, to be trained. It's not only if you that you listen to a 1 hour presentation on communication that you will improve that skill. You may get some really good hints and decide that you want to try them, but you have to put this into practice. That's
And
what is very important.
I'd like to add that that to build on what you're saying, there are a lot of excellent articles written on these topics. There are a
Mhm.
lot of excellent sessions on these topics, uh, and 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 yet at the same time, there are articles that are sort of one off. That's another reason for writing a book. A book is more permanent, more concrete. Even though our book is in electronic form, which gives the advantage of being able to have direct links to all of our references and resources, it still is a book that provides a central resource for pulling all these ideas together in one place. I wanted to add one more thing to what Rich was saying as far as the competency framework itself. The outcome of the interviews produced 8 competency areas, and the 8 competency areas are communication, professional values, external forces and industry knowledge, leadership, relationship management and interpersonal collaboration, technical skills and analytical problem solving, strategic insight and integration, and results oriented solutions. Those are the 8 competencies. Now, I might add that technical skills and analytical problem solving, most actuaries are very good at that. That's where we connect into the competency framework. But the other part of this is that most people want to jump immediately from that to leadership. So my point about this, and this is another reason for motivating the books, is in aligning these ideas, is you have to be able to build and contribute and learn other concepts before you can be an effective leader. And leadership doesn't mean necessarily leading people. You can lead projects, and so leadership itself is not just is a building process. You start by leading projects, and then you end by leading people. Once your people skills improve by gaining in competency under the communication, and gaining competency under relationship management, interpersonal collaboration, for example. So all of these really pull together to bring us into this world of competency.
Mhm, mhm.
I hope we didn't lose Rich. It looks like
Yeah, it looks
Rich,
as
are you
if
still
he's
there?
Yes, I am still here. I was playing with one of the settings, hoping I might still get my screen image available.
Okay, at least
Screen
we hear
sharing.
you. So,
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're still there, Rich.
All right, I'm working to get it back.
Okay.
okay,
This is a
okay.
new platform that we establish connection, but not quite everything.
Um, I understand that there's this self-assessment that is possible to be made. Rich, you explained a little bit how to think about how it works, but is there a link that we could share? What maybe after the call under the video? Is there
Yes,
something
there
that?
is.
Okay. Okay,
We have
then we can do
anticipated
this
you'd
at,
be able to.
once we're finished with our conversation. We can write
Okay.
some comments and then share the link on that.
Yeah, we have composed some comments, first reading, interpreting each of the questions that Carolyn posed,
Mhm.
and then putting in blue font my keywords to it, and in red font Curtis's keywords. And in addition, a couple inserts, we have a screenshot of the Society of Actuaries, SOA.org or CFAT.SOA.org. This is where you go under professional development to the competency framework self-assessment. And that self-assessment, as was mentioned earlier, is available to non-members as well. And of
Mhm.
course, if you have in your shop IT people, you have actuarial technicians, you have a lot of other technical people who can equally benefit from this. So not only to the actuarial staff, but to everybody on staff that has a
Mhm.
need of this. It's available, and you can get the result of the survey and feed it into an Excel spreadsheet and go to work just as if you are a true actuary.
And what I realized when I was reading the book is, it's like people will identify what it is that they need and want to work with to go to where they want to be in the next 5 years. And when I work with clients, that's, someone comes to me and has an objective, so we make sure that we identify and that we clarify what this objective is. As a second step, we make sure that we identify what needs to be done to achieve that objective. And then there's something, though, that's over the whole thing. And we need to talk about the mindset or the state of mind that the person wants to or needs to adopt if he or she can do the things that will help to reach the goals. And I was thrilled in the book when I also saw that you're talking about a design mindset. Not only that you do the self assessment, but you need to do, when you're thinking about what is it you want to do moving forward, you need to adopt, or you should be adopting this design mindset. And there were 5 items out of this design mindset. And the first one is be curious. The second one is to try stuff. The third one is reframe problems. The fourth one is know that it's a process. And the fifth one is ask for help. And I was interested to know, if both of you, if you reflect on your career, and the moments when you were designing your future, but looking back from today, which one out of these 5 items from a design mindset which one was the most important for you?
How about Curtis? You lead off on this one.
Okay. Um, First of all, I'd like to put some context on design your future. Design your future was an idea that the Society of Actuaries came up with to frame the competency framework. And I'm going to read a little bit of my notes here. It was simply to help to state the purpose and value of the 8 competencies. To design your future. So parallel to that, as we were writing the book, and actually as we were writing articles to support the competency framework, we came across an amazing book by a couple of authors, Burnett and Evans, called Designing Your Life. These 2 authors, Designing Your Life, were Stanford professors, but prior to that were executives in Silicon Valley for tech firms. They ended up producing a course that was the most popular course on the Stanford University campus. So they decided to write a book about it, and we referenced that book. The ideas that you reference about designing mindset, a design mindset, comes from their book, basically. We provide some context to that by referencing other things in the book as well. But the design mindset, mine was free frame problems. Why? Is because you don't want to be locked into someone's view of your progress. You don't want to be locked into someone's view of your performance. If you do that, you're yielding yourself to their opinion. But if you take some confidence into what you have to offer, then that, and I'll address that at another point. But if you take some confidence in what you have to offer, then you don't want to be locked into someone else's process. So reframing problems. So you look at a problem, you look at it from a different point of view, and then you operate from that point. I'm going to be giving segue to Rich's favorite by saying my second was knowing it's a process. For me, knowing it's a process is recognizing that regardless of what you're doing in your career, it is always a process. And so you can vary it. You can, as you're going through this, So as you're reframing problems and looking at your process, and maybe making career or course corrections along the way, you don't have to feel like you're stuck in one particular path, or a path maybe that someone else has defined for you. It's a process, so you can take whatever directions you want to do. So, Rich, do you have something to add to that?
I certainly do. You can depend on it. Well, the first one I like is be curious. In some other context, I recently wrote, the trait I particularly like about actuaries are they are curious people. They're very eager to learn and understand, and they're very tenacious, so they go deep on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
For curiosity, to me, I would say that one of the defining aspects of my life, not just my actuarial career, is that after I worked 2 years as an actuarial student, passed a few exams, I wanted to see the world. I'd been working hard for several years, and I was not ready to go on the 5 more years of taking exams straight through, working hard from age 17. So I saved up $500 left over after I'd paid off my loans, and I went to Europe. I stayed there for 9 months, and I saw the Oktoberfest. I saw the Olympics in Munich. I saw everything I wanted to see, a walkabout. And I learned German pretty decently. I learned French somewhat, but I got to live in Paris. It was like, for me, life is a whole wave of possibilities, far more than I ever imagined for myself when I was 15. So curious, that was it. Go out and see the world whenever you can, and don't get encumbered with a bunch of nice cars and a mortgage and so forth. So back to that. I heartily endorse being a vagabond somewhere in your life before you're settled. Next.
Yeah.
Yes, comment?
Well, yeah, just go ahead. Because I thought about that question myself, I thought, for me, I think it's the second one is try stuff, do things. I think be curious. It's already part of me, so I don't have to think about, oh, I need to be curious. So, but I think for me, it's try stuff. Mm,
Yes, the Leonardo da Vinci approach.
mm, mm,
Sculpting, sure. Painting, sure. Building a war
mm.
machine, why not? Anything.
Yeah,
I can
And
yeah.
do
I,
it
and
all.
I might say, Rich referenced of Vagabond. I've actually reflected upon that in my own path, my own career path, and I've found that after doing the Camino de Santiago, I've learned that I'm more of a pilgrim, a pilgrim through life, as opposed
Yeah,
to a vagabond.
it's a
So,
good, yeah,
searching
it's a
for
good
meaning and purpose,
expression. I
right?
like the expression, yeah.
Yes. No, a specific goal. All right. Yes, the process is the other side. And for me, the most exciting thing I ever did in my actuarial career was when computers were getting good enough to build total company models and the software was being developed. I had just a terrific role. There were product development actuaries and they were doing their things. And I got my own little unit. I was granted 2 actuarial exam assistant, and I was charged to build the entire company's model: health insurance, annuities, pensions, life insurance. And first, I chose my assistant. Second, I chose the best computer available on the market. I always had the best computer. And I chose the software vendor. And then I put it together. And all of these things I learned in the course of building a total model. I had to write product descriptions. What are the key features of every product? I had to define all of the assets for the company, the mortgage side, the classic bond side. And I had a lot of persuasive effort. What's the assumption for reinsurance? I would dug into the accounts and develop my own experience study. So there's so many ways. And of course, persuasion is another part of the process because it takes a lot of time to build a total company model with 2 people.
Mhm,
But with that, I was always saying, yes, I'm making progress. Yes, this is
mhm,
getting done right.
yeah,
So that was very satisfying to actually have the product and have the actuarial memorandum and this model that could project new business alternatives. So
mhm,
that's
mhm.
the process part of it. I think building models is just one of the coolest things you can do.
Yeah. Many people will agree, I think. Many people listening to the call, they will agree on that. Um, I will change a little bit the topics, but I regularly hold communication trainings for actuaries. And in some of these trainings, we offer the participant to do a rather simple DISC personality test. And over the years, I don't have precise statistics, I have to agree, but I would say that on average, between probably 75 and 85% of actuaries or the participants, they have shown that they are like the blue types, the more analytical people. And if you look at the DISC model, the blue type is more on the introvert side compared to extrovert type. So, what would you say to an actuary who's listening right now, who's likes to do analytics and so on, and who's thinking, "Oh, well, I'm an introvert, so stuff like communication, networking, presentation, I'm not good at this." So, what would you like to say to someone who's right now listening and thinking like this?
Would you like to open this, or can I
Sure.
take the lead?
Yeah, take it up, Curtis.
Okay, so the first I would like to compliment you on recognizing a very good personality test profile. In the book itself, we actually reference three different ways of looking at personality. DISC is one of them, and actually, I like DISC, but one of the things I find limiting for myself about DISC is that it kind of puts you into a way of evaluating people based on categories, and it kind of limits you to keeping a person in that category. I actually prefer the Myers-Briggs, which is an older style personality profiling. It has 16 different personality types where you can look at things, and it looks at things, defines type by preferences as opposed to by absolutes. So people have a preference for being introverted versus extroverted. I might say that it may not come across that way, but I'm actually an introvert. So that's because I've recognized that introversion is a preference for me. And I'd like to quote a contributor to our book, who you might also think of as an extrovert, Christine Hofbeck, author of the book Winning Conditions, a successful actuary, a candidate for president of the Society of Actuaries recently, also a successful participant in the Survivor series, a TV series. I think she was number 5 in one of the recent Survivor series about 8 years ago or so. She has a wonderful family. She actually just recently completed the Camino de Santiago herself. And so she's very much an introverted actuary, but here's her, she's seen our extrovert, she appears extroverted, but here's her answer to our question. We gave her a question in this book, an interview in this chapter 7, which is an interview, chapter 6, which is an interview with Christine Hofbeck. So here's the question. I'm a classic introverted actuary. What am I to do? Her answer, I'm an introvert too. Just to be clear, the definition of introvert is someone who restores their energy by being alone. In contrast, an extrovert is someone who gains energy by being with people. So creating experiences can be draining and exhilarating to those of us who are introverts. I might add to that what I learned for myself is also something that's referenced in the book, is depending on where your areas of talent are, where your area of talent lie, there's a book called Strengths Finder by the Gallup organization, where they've identified 34 talent themes. And if you take this test, you can find out which are your top talent themes. If you extrovert in those areas of talent, you'll find that you have a way of being able to succeed. One of my areas of talent is relator. So I find I'm good at relating to people one-on-one. So I would suggest that one of the ways introverted actuaries can gain confidence is number one is you probably just haven't had enough practice talking with people. That's relationship management. The best way to start is talking one-on-one, then in small groups. I myself have participated in a lot of different small groups at work, also at church. And I've had the opportunity, and through Toastmasters, I had the opportunity to lead small groups. And so all these different venues give you an opportunity of practicing being with people. Yes, you might need to pause and relax and refresh and restore as an introvert. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you don't like people. It just means that that's not where you draw your energy. So that's my response to the introverted actuary question.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you, Curtis. Uh, Rich, would you like to add something?
Yes, I'd like to add something. In the appendix, we have about 25 questions, and I close with the last question, number 25. And it's again, I'm a classic introverted actuary. What am I to do? And the suggestion comes from Bob Moran, who is, for many people, known. He's a well-known recruiter. He has, for many years, worked with D.W. Simpson, and we're partnering with D.W. Simpson at the moment on another project ourselves. And he was a former Chicago improv actor, Second City. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. I mentioned I particularly gravitated to Bob because Bob was also the host for our socials at the Southeastern Actuaries Conference, where Curtis and I met one evening on a Thursday night. So who knows about the Second City? Improv. Why not? It's, as Curtis said, go out and put your ego on the line and be willing
Yes.
to embarrass yourself when it's not on the money with your company. That's what
Yeah.
Postmasters is about. It's a laboratory for repetition of your skills and trying things out that may not work. So improv is another great one. And Second City is an incredible phenomenon in Chicago, and there are improv courses all over the country. But just an example of the people who have gone through this with Bob. He was colleagues back years ago when these guys were getting started in the 70s and 80s. Tina Fey, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, John Candy, Chris Farley, and how many more? The list goes on. A lot of other well-known people. Dan Aykroyd, did I mention him? So that's a great thing. And you say, well, geez, that must be expensive for all those celebrity courses. I can't afford it. Well, I took up secondcity.com, and it's about $3.95 for a 6 or 8 week course of one time a week for a couple hours. I think that's pretty good value compared to, for example, the current Society of Actuaries course on communication that runs to $275 for several hours of one day. And it's a one-off, of course.
Thank you for sharing. I often say this also to the participant to my trainings that leave your ego in the corridor behind the door and just try. I always try to um, to make a comfortable room. Like here, we are allowed to try everything. We're allowed to make mistakes, but it's the place to try because this is also how we learn. So thank you for sharing
Non-judgmental.
that.
One
Yeah,
last
yeah.
comment I think is really important. Tony Hammond is an actuary that Curtis worked for at one point, and he's been our sponsor all along from way back. He gave a testimonial in our book, and he makes a very important point. I read it, an excerpt. Human interpersonal relationships and communication are not formulas an actuary can memorize or calculate. Or are they? For actuaries and aspiring students, the Society of Actuaries Competency Framework and this book are the formula and the solution. By following the path outlined in this book, an actuary can learn and hone the skills needed to turn their answers into information that they can confidently share.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Mm. And that's the beauty of your book that you have gathered, let's say, all these contributions from so many actuaries all around the world. And, I like the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. We could transport this to a wider perspective. It takes a village to become an actuary or to grow on our path. And I think that these contributors to the book, they are part of that village. They are the heroes. They are also the role models that you spoke about earlier. And I'm glad that I'm also a contributor to the section about the competencies where I share my journey regarding leadership, also together with John Robinson. And my path is not a very conventional one, maybe, as I left the pure number crunching stuff at some point. I moved into, well, qualitative risk management. And now for the past 8 years, I have my own company and work as a coach, mentor, and a keynote speaker So every path is unique because we all have our own noble purpose to align with. And sometimes on that path there are highs and there are lows. So what would you like to tell someone who right now is going through a low?
Okay. Well, the first thing is to say it will pass. It'll work. You have demonstrated your competence in the past, and presuming that you are active among your associates, you have people who appreciate your talents, not just in the company that you're in, but also through the whole of the Society of Actuaries, the volunteer work you've done. And it's really nice to have this going for you. One example is Mike Brownstein. He's a contributor to our Chapter 7, 3 questions and a tip. And he was talking, is volunteering worth it? And his point was to say he was 58 years old and he got dealt out at a company and he had 3 kids that he wanted to put through college. So he needed to work. And he had done a lot of volunteer work. He had written a book about how to be a successful actuary 20 years ago. And he got a call from a friend at the University of Connecticut. And they said, we need somebody to step in. And within 3 months, he was the head of the University of Connecticut's actuarial science program. He worked on for 12 years, put all his kids through college, and he retired in great comfort and had his family totally equipped for their lives. So that's the value of volunteering. So that's
Yeah.
the kind of thing that can happen for you if you hit a trough. And it, as Carolyn said, it happens to all of us. We go up and we go down, but the tenacity you got in learning to getting through the exams and the challenges and deadlines you've passed and accomplished in the past, all that helps you.
Mhm, mhm. I fully agree. Yes.
My
Mhm,
my compliment to that is is carry on is perseverance. You just keep going. Use this time in your time of persevering, reflect and reevaluate your career and direction. It is a low. That's a way of just recovering. The designing your life book, as you referenced earlier, says try stuff. So use that opportunity to reflect on what else can I do. The other thing I was also reflecting on regarding a person who might be going a low in their career is to have hope, because you are uniquely created to contribute only what you can do, and that's something again that emphasized by referencing talents. If you look at the Gallup or Strengths Finder talents, and there are 34 talent themes, and you take the 34 talent themes and you do their test where you take the top 5 in a specific order, it makes you 1 in 33 million unique. So that means you have something unique to offer to the world, regardless of what you may think. That should give you confidence and hope that regardless of where you might feel you are as a low in your career, that there is a place for you. Just keep on moving, keep persevering.
mhm, mhm, mhm. I fully agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes also things happen for a reason that we don't understand why at the moment,
That's right.
and then life brings us somewhere else where we're thinking, "Oh my God, it's better than what I could imagine." So
Yeah.
yes,
Indeed.
persevering. Hmm.
Indeed.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
dig deep beyond what we thought we had in us.
Yes, yes, in fact, yeah, yeah.
And one
Thank you
other
for sharing
important,
this. Yeah.
okay, one last point on this topic
Yes.
is that continuing to refine your presentation skills. It can really be deadening when you're out of work for a while and don't see anything going on, but you got to present yourself, get dressed every morning. And Toastmasters is just a phenomenal organization to have as a community of support. All kinds of people that are equally eager to see their lives advance. And you can develop your presentation skills on so many fronts. You can learn storytelling, you can learn PowerPoint presentations, you can do dramatic presentations with another participant, you can do debates. All that versatility you develop, and it's just a laboratory. Any technical presentation you have to do at work, you can take it out, try it out at Toastmasters and get competent evaluations. Impromptu speaking skills, many people say that's the best part of Toastmasters. Speak on the subject about anything you don't know anything about for 2 minutes.
Good practice.
Carolyn,
So
are you about to move to close? Uh,
Yes, I was thinking because I have
because there was one thing I wanted to add.
yes.
Your last question really was a great prompt that I wanted to help segue to your close, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
by borrowing one of the responses from Rich and then also adding mine. If someone listening to our conversation now wants to design your future, what are their next three steps?
Mhm.
Well, Rich says execute the self assessment. Absolutely, go to the Society of Actuaries website, learn about the self assessment. That's the first thing. My second point would be to add, get a copy of the book. Because the book
Yes,
provides a great
for sure.
resource to complement all the things and learn more about the competency framework and what that means and how to actually execute the competency framework for the Society of Actuaries, but also helps you understand the purpose and the meaning of that. But and then the last point is, be realistic about where you are, but at the same time, be optimistic and explore your noble purpose. I would say, bringing your unique talents and interests to do what you love. That would be my third point. And I might suggest that all those things are possible when you work with a trusted colleague, a friend, or a leader to encourage and support your journey. And who else to do that with but Carolyn Gregoire?
Thank you. Thank you, Curtis.
what an insightful conclusion. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
I have here a QR code. I think it's for the link to the book, I believe. But
Yes.
I think we will share more information under the videos on all the platforms so people can access this easier. I don't know if we tested it should work if you're reading the QR code now, but we'll make sure that you get all more information about the book. Um, so I think that what we all three of us want to say is start now with designing your future before your future designs you.
Amen.
and and how can people get in touch with you if they have questions? How What's the best way?
We're on the Society of Actuaries website, active as
Hmm.
can be, and LinkedIn.
Hmm.
We have a presence as well. You'll probably encounter some of our other material describing and promoting the competency framework and our
Hmm.
book.
Hmm. Hmm.
We can also include that information with our closing points as in the chat. I guess is that the way it closes for you,
Hmm. Hmm.
Carolyn? Is that
Yes.
where you're going to be putting other references in the chat room? So we'll be including that with that as well.
Yes,
And
under the
circling,
video. When we're finished, we can put all that
Yep,
yes,
information. I
exactly.
think.
and
Yeah.
circling back to your opening question about technical skills versus non-technical skills, Actex is our publisher, and we want to thank them greatly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they have, of course, been providing actuarial learning materials for the exams for decades. And they have a list of other books that complement. Bill Morella has just released a book about interviewing skills for actuaries. There's a book about DISC, and there's also a great book for those who are taking actuarial exams by Roy Jew about how to pass exams efficiently. He is the ranking youngest FSA of all time,
Hmm.
20 years old, even younger than Charles Gorin, the bridge expert, who for a long time was the youngest at age 21.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for being here. And I think that we could repeat this maybe with further questions about the book, maybe also with some feedback that you will get about the book, maybe like in 6 months or 1 year. We'll see how everything goes. Thank you for taking the time today on Labor's Day. And as Curtis said, if someone is listening now and needs some support on your path, connect with me, get in touch with me. I'll be glad to help. And everybody, stay tuned because on the next live will take place on Monday, the 30th of September, and it will be about, I will write more details during the month, but it will be something about What do I do when I have too much time? Maybe it's not your case, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's the case of someone you know. So thank you again. Thank you to you too. Thank you to
Thank
everybody who
you,
has
Carolyn, for hosting.
listened or who will listen in the future. I wish you a wonderful week, a wonderful month of September.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Bye now,
Bye
everybody.
bye.